Welcome to my review of the 2019 remake of Child's Play, a film which strongly apes the original 1988 version. Andy Barclay's back with his mum Karen, living in an apartment block in Chicago. And just like in the first film, Andy gets his doll because his mum brings home a second-hand one from the department store where she works. There's even a cop with the same name as the Chris Sarandon character from the original. But there's one component which is very, very different from Child's Play 1, which turns the film into a completely different beast, whether you like that change or not, which is the fact that there's no Charles Lee Ray. In fact, there's nobody inside the Chucky doll. This is an AI Chucky caused by a disgruntled factory worker in Asia who one day, pissed off at his boss, decides to remove all of the behavioural inhibitors from one of the dolls on the production line and send it off into the wide world to cause havoc. And of course, Andy is the 1 in a billion kid who gets hold of the doll all the way across the world. Now, when I first heard that they were going to take this path with the remake, I was open to the idea. I thought to myself, well, that might not be a bad thing when you get to the 8th film, you know, doing something different. But the reality of watching it was sadly very different. I didn't enjoy this film. I was bored by the halfway point. I didn't like the Buddy Bear AI thing at all. I paused my film at one point and I was just appalled to learn that there was still 42 minutes left. It's as if they've taken the best thing out of Chucky, his personality, and then tried to make a film without that, and the results of that are never going to be good. I mean, it would be like reimagining Jason Voorhees as an android created in a factory. It just wouldn't make any sense. You might as well just have a completely different movie with a different title. You know, I mean, I guess they wanted to use the Child's Play Chucky name for commercial reasons, but I don't think it worked. I mean, if you go by the wiki figures, this film only made 44 million off a 10 million budget. And the same month, Annabelle Comes Home, another film about a murderous doll, made 230 million, over 5 times as much. Now, that's quite embarrassing given the fact that Chucky is a horror icon and Annabelle's still a relatively new thing. But my thought running through this movie was, I don't need this. You know, I've still got the Brad Dourif, Mancini version of Chucky coming back in a TV show next year. Aside from the fact that I want to complete my review series by watching this film, why else am I watching it? Because I'm sure as hell not enjoying it. I don't want to be Captain Hindsight, but I'm sure this film would have been more successful commercially if they'd have just brought the Brad Dourif version into cinemas, called the film Chucky, made it the franchise's very own Halloween H2O or Halloween 2018, you know, build it as the big final battle against Andy kind of thing, and I'm sure it would have done better. I'm sure. I mean, it still did well critically. I mean, it's 63% on Rotten Tomatoes, bizarrely, but no, it definitely wasn't for me. I thought the relationship between Andy and the doll was skillfully developed for a while. But the trouble is, I've seen this sort of thing so many times now. You know, child developing a friendship with AI, any human developing a friendship with AI, that unless you're going to make it absolutely brilliant and come at it from a different angle, then I'm just not interested in it, really. And the point where this film completely lost me, and the spoilers ahead, just to warn you, is when Shane's head gets delivered to Andy's bedroom. I mean, the film should have been over at this point. He should tell his mum, tell the authorities, and we're done. But because the film needs to continue for a hell of a lot longer, Andy therefore does completely the most illogical thing and wraps the head up in a parcel and conceals it from everyone. And what follows is this really bad 15-20 minute segment which almost plays out like a badly written black comedy, where every principal character in the film suddenly wants to unwrap this head for some reason, and Andy keeps muttering some excuse which just stops them at the last minute, and I just mentally walked away from the film at this point. And what's weird is that I wanted the adults to open the parcel. I wanted completely the opposite of what Andy wanted throughout all this, and I don't think it's good that me, the viewer, wants something different from what the protagonist wants. I should be in the protagonist's shoes. I should feel the same tension that they do. So yeah, after this, I didn't really wake up again until probably the department store scene where everybody starts gathering for the release of Buddy Bear 2, which was a nice setup. I thought there might be some kind of big massacre at this point, something that would give me some memory to take away of the film, but I guess they didn't quite have the budget to do the Chucky version of Saving Private Ryan, because I can't remember much happening apart from a couple of people getting knocked over by toy aeroplanes. There's one of the buddy bears looks like a Wookiee, bizarrely. I think he gets somebody in one of the aisles, I think. And then we move on to the finale where Andy's mum, Karen, gets strung up on this crane. How Chucky managed to do that when he's about that big, I don't know, unless one of the Wookiees helped him, which is possible. And then Karen starts to hang by the neck for longer than I've ever seen anybody in a Western film hang, and yet she still lives at the end of it all. Yeah, I mean, by the end of the film, if I'd had a DVD box of this, which I don't, I probably would have looked at it and in my best Brad Dourif voice gone, "Are you fucking with me?" If we talk a bit about the characters now, most of them have something wrong with them, or the relationships between them aren't quite right. We've already talked about Andy's bad decision making in the film. The actor playing him is at least as good as the actor from the first movie, though, I guess. In terms of Karen, I actually prefer this version to the Catherine Hicks version. I think Andy suits having a younger mum, but again, bad decision making. It's hard to imagine the Catherine Hicks take on the character going out with this womanising arsehole Shane, and you can tell there's something off in Shane's treatment of Andy, even when Karen's in the room. Mike Norris, meanwhile, he's a lovely bloke, but he's not Chris Sarandon. I don't understand why they just didn't give this character a completely different name, because otherwise he's just going to get unfavourable comparisons. It's sort of hinted at the end of the film that Karen and Mike, there might be something there between them when they touch hands on the gurney, but it's completely unearned. I mean, there's no chemistry between these two up to this point. There's this really awkward scene in a hallway where they try talking to each other and there's no spark there whatsoever. Andy gets some friends in this film, which was unexpected but very pleasing. The trouble is, we just don't get to see enough of their characters. They don't get enough screen time. Come the end of the movie, when they're all beating the shit out of Chucky, it should be a big wow moment, but it's just not, because we've not gotten to know them well enough. Well, apart from Andy, obviously. As for the kills, there's only one that really stands out for me as being a decent kill, and that's the one in the department store where this guy is dressed up as a buddy doll for this promotion. He gets stabbed in the neck by Chucky, but because he's got this big, large thing on his head, nobody can see that he's been stabbed, so he's wobbling around in this suit. And it sort of reminded me of the Easter Bunny kill from Critters 2 back in the day. There are some other kills that don't work. Shane falling off a ladder and he's crawling around for a bit and then his head gets chewed up by a llama. That tried to be too elaborate for its own good for me. And also there's this one with this woman in a car and it just goes on for way too long. So it's not a great film for kills. In conclusion, this feels like a film created around the shareholders' table of a boardroom where everybody put in their little bit and created a very play it safe, unexciting horror film, which I certainly won't go back to. I mean, I can see myself going back to the first 7 films for a bit of nostalgia a few years down the line. I certainly won't be coming back to this one. Having said that, I think there is the potential for a sequel, bizarrely. I mean, the Annabelle series started out with a pretty poor film and then did a total 180 when it came to the quality of Annabelle creation. That could happen this time as well. If you started a second film with Andy and his gang all together and you get this camaraderie going and we get to know those characters a lot better, and I think if you had an army of Chucky dolls this time instead of just one, then there could be this war going on and it could be cool. Maybe they could even end it in the toy factory for a bit of nostalgia, similar to the original Child's Play 2. But I suspect they will just let it die, in all honesty. So let's get to the bag of terror and find out the score for the Child's Play remake. You've probably seen it already. Just one bloody axe for the film. It's not that good, I'm afraid. So there we have it. I have completed my Child's Play review series. It's taken me a long time. I think I did the original film way back in like episode 16 or something like that. Yeah, I'm really pleased to do a long series like this and see it through to the end. I've had my ups and downs with it, but I have enjoyed most of these films. I'm going to do one more video very soon where I rank the Child's Play films from 8th all the way up to the best film of all, so keep an eye out for that. But other than that, I guess we're done. But I think my closing thought in terms of the 2019 version is, I don't want to be its friend.